All right, and welcome back to the Worldwide Wolves podcast. This is our second week doing this. I moved across the country in the last 7 days. I'm coming to you from Pittsburgh in a closet. And my co-host here, Jake, is coming to you from Australia. Jake, how is Australia and how are you
Good,
doing?
good. I'm doing good. I'm in a room, so I think a little bit better than you. But we figured out some lighting stuff. You're looking great there in your closet. How was the move? I mean, moving's the worst thing in the world, so I assume bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 16-hour drive. Nobody cares, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. 16-hour drive, and I got sick, and I'm still sick. You can hear it in my voice. Jake's sick. It's the sick episode, so
Hmm.
that's what we're going to do. But today, what we're actually going to talk about is the Wolves running it back. And if you listened to last week's episode, me and Jake kind of came to a consensus where we were like, I don't really think the Wolves should run it back. So we're going to see if maybe some opinions have shifted and just the pros and cons of it all. But just, Jake, your reaction to free agency this week with the Wolves, I guess, just broadly, like, before we get into specific pros and
Yeah,
cons, how you feeling?
I mean, bored of.
Yeah,
I think there's validity in not doing crazy things in free agency. Doing crazy things doesn't always make you a better team, but it's cool to look down at your phone and you have a Shams notification, and it's the Wolves have done this or your team has done this. So it was boring watching all of those notifications fly for every other team, and all we got was a Joe
Joe
Ingles
Ingles.
Shams bomb. But yeah, so in that sense, in the sense of the still little kid who loved NBA free agency and loved all the drama abroad. And obviously it's a bit different now. It's not as fun as it used to be when LeBron James was in Denver doing having a meeting, or Dwight Howard was somewhere, doing a meeting, or DeAndre Jordan was locked in Doc Rivers' house in his basement, not allowed to leave. So it's not as fun as that was, but it's still fun watching all that stuff happen. And there wasn't much in terms of Wolves stuff, but yeah, so they're running it back. And I've wrestled, like you said, we weren't huge fans of it last week. I've wrestled with it all week, just trying to solidify my opinions on it, I guess. And I think I'm at where it's like, I think it's the least acceptable thing in terms of it is acceptable, but it's the least, thing in that acceptable realm that I would have liked to see. So it's hard to look at a team who made the Western Conference Finals and be overly annoyed that they're going to try with that same team again. But I do think that this team kind of had a ceiling, and maybe that ceiling might have even got a little bit lower just with guys getting older. So I guess in that sense, I'm not overly thrilled about it, but I still like this team. I still think they're a good team. It's different if you think the team is bad and then they do nothing. So I guess that's where I'm at. Where are you at?
Yeah, so I'm at a pretty similar place. We kind of went into this week saying like we don't want them to run it back, but also acknowledging there aren't a ton of paths to
Mm-hmm.
divert course dramatically. So I'm at a place where I'm like, this may have been one of the only options. Obviously, they pursued Durant, and it seemed like that was Durant or nothing based on what we've
Mm-hmm.
got. So it's interesting. I'm maybe something at the trade deadline, maybe something happens later off season, but right now it really does seem like, yeah, they're running it back. And I guess you did kind of mention, let's start on the cons, because you did mention a point I want to bring up kind of right away. One of the cons for running it back is that Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert are still, at least right now, Rudy for sure, key members of this team, and they're not getting any better. They're getting older, probably worse, and it's the two positions where I think the backup is the most questionable. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting. We thought maybe they'd bring in a point guard. They still could. It's either Malcolm Brogdon or Kyle Tighe at this rate. I mean, there's really nobody left, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean,
Don't let him hear this. He'll get a big head.
but yeah, I mean, the biggest con to me about running it back is that Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert are the guys that helped
Mm-hmm.
push this thing as the veterans are just getting older, and their backups are just we'll see. I do like Rob, but we just have no idea, right? So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point that you make, that it's a little bit weird that the two positions that we're most worried about are the two positions where you kind of just are like, I'm not sure if the backup can be like an overwhelmingly positive player. I mean, we both like Rob. We both hope that Rob plays more. We both think that Rob could be really good. But the odds of what is pretty much still going to be a rookie point guard who has played, I think, around 500 minutes in his career is going to just like be the guy who's a point guard on a Western Conference Finals team or a Finals team. It's super rare, especially for a small guard who did have
It's
some issues
almost
with
as rare as a 38-year-old point guard doing it.
exactly, which I tried to find. I
Yeah.
did go through. I did a basketball reference deep dive while I was just laying in bed waiting for my child to wake me up, and I can't find one for a long time. Not a point guard. I think it was Kevin Willis. I found in 2003 was the last 38-year-old who actually played rotation minutes on a championship team, and that was for the Spurs. Jason Kidd, I think, was 36 maybe.
How old was
When
Horford?
Horford, I think, was 36 or 37 when
Okay.
they won the championship. So, I mean, it's a weird cutoff, 37, 38,
Yeah, but also Horford, point or power forward, not or
and like an important member of that team, but Porzingis was their starting
yeah.
five. So, so Jason Kidd maybe was the one that I guess, was comparable to on that Dallas team in 2011. But he was better than Mike Conley, like in terms of overall career, in terms of at that age. So it is weird to be like, we have the two opposite ends of the spectrum at point guard, and we're getting close to that at center as well. I think Gobert still is more impactful than Conley, and I think is still definitely a starting caliber center in this league. So, but Baron J is also even more raw than Rob, and I just wouldn't expect him to play at all next season. So it is a weird kind of quirk to this team, one that I think, if you're looking at this team on paper 3-4 months before the season starts, it feels like we are going to be complaining about that. And
Yeah.
that's I think where some of the annoyance comes from us and maybe the fan base, is that you can almost see this paper mache kind of lineup from this far out. So I'm a bit worried about that. I think they probably could have done some things to improve it. I don't know what they could have done at point guard. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of at the point where if you can't get a clear starting level good point guard, and you can name any of them, it doesn't have to be as good as a De'Aaron Fox, but it has to be better than a Malcolm Brogdon, who was terrible last season. Then I'd rather probably just play Rob more minutes, because that player is not going to make you better than a rookie point guard anyway, or a second-year point guard. So I think maybe that's what they've come to as well, that they couldn't get a really good point guard. They think, well, we've spent assets on this young point guard. We've still got Mike Conley, who is, our veteran, who was our starting point guard last season. If we're going to get a, Brogdon or name your player X point guard, Monte Morris, we may as well just give Rob more minutes and see how he goes, because that guy is not going to be very good. Monte Morris isn't very good. Malcolm Brogdon isn't very good. Like, they're not starting level point guards on great teams. So I think I agree with them there, but also as a fan who doesn't get to have the conversations with other teams, I'm sitting here like, could we have got a better point guard? Like, could we have done something with Julius Randle? Could we have done something even with Rudy Gobert? I think it's that important that Ant has someone next to him who does the things that make him better. And right now, I just don't think they have that.
Yeah, and when it comes to point guard, it's not so much just like guy that can run an offense, right? It's secondary scorer more so, in my opinion. And a guy like Kobe White is maybe still out there. We'll see what happens with a situation like that. We just don't know De'Aaron Fox, but as of right now, it looks like they're just not going to get that. Looks like Julius Nas, maybe some Jaden McDaniels are going to fill in that role just like they did last year. And I mean, yeah, if anything, it's hoping that, Rob can step up, and we'll be talking a lot more about the young guys in our second episode this week. That's what's going to be focused on, but very interesting. I guess right now they do have one roster spot open. They've got 14 out of 15. Who knows if it's someone super impactful, but if you had to choose, would you choose backup center or backup point guard?
Yeah, I think I would still. I mean, I've been thinking about this all week, because like even though I just said what I said, I still think having another. If you get a point guard and he's the third point guard, that makes sense to me. because I don't. It doesn't
Sure.
make sense to get. I'm just going to keep using Brogdon as the example, but it doesn't
That's
get
what it is.
make sense. Yeah, doesn't make sense to get Brogdon and play him over Rob, in my opinion. But it does make sense to get Brogdon in case Conley's injured. Rob had 4 ankle sprains last season. There is a chance that they need another backup point guard, and I think DiVincenzo is probably going to do more of that than we would like to see. But I don't think he's the worst option in the world because, like you said, if they're on the court with Anthony Edwards, Ant's the point guard. Like,
Right.
if they're on the court with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, they're like the third point guard on the court, the point guard. So I think Dante will work in a pinch. I think the problem with getting a backup 5 is that you can't just play someone behind Gobert, because if you sign Randall and you sign Nas and you do this runner back thing, one of them has to play the 5 at times, or else there's just not enough minutes. Like, you can't play Julius Randle 33 minutes and have Nas just be a 4 and play 15 minutes a game. So you're committing to that small ball lineup if you have both of those guys on the roster. So I don't know. It's the same kind of issue. You can get a backup 5 who will just eat up some minutes if Gobert's injured or if Nas is injured, or if Randall's injured. But I don't think that either of those guys, I don't think this roster spot is going to be in the rotation, and I don't think they should.
Yeah.
So I guess you toss a coin. I think I'd probably rather it be a point guard because
Who sits
Mike's,
next to Ingles this season is pretty much
yeah. I think Mike's old. Rob has had injury problems already and might just not be very good. We don't know. So I think I would rather it be just an old veteran point guard. And then if you have injuries at the big man position, you can always, I think you can shift Nas to the 5. You can shift Randall to the 5. You can shift Jaden to the 4. Baron J could play 10 minutes a game for 3 weeks. Like, I think none
we've
of
at
them
least
are
seen that kind of like when Gobert's gone down for games, we've seen it, and it hasn't looked like a disaster. In fact, it's been fun. Not very winning at times, but at least fun.
So one of the weirdest things, I'm going to just bring a stat into here now, because one thing that I see when I'm looking through all this on and off stuff, all of the lineup, numbers from last season, is it's weird how good the Nas and Julius lineups were. Like, they were a +4, which is not great, but like they had lineups where they were +24 over 150 possessions. Their most used lineup was Edwards, DiVincenzo, Alexander Walker, Randall, Reed, and that's a +13.6. Like, so they weren't. I mean, watching it, I didn't feel like that. I always felt like those lineups were just couldn't rebound, couldn't defend, and weren't good enough offensively to make it work, but it kind of did. So I think they're probably looking at those numbers and thinking, we can get away with that in the non-Rudy minutes. And again, like if there's an injury, Jaden can shift up. Baron J can play for 10 minutes if he needs to. Maybe Jesse Edwards. I mean, I hope not, but maybe Jesse Edwards can play for 8 minutes. Yeah, I think Jesse Edwards this time last season was the worst player I've ever seen in summer league. I was actually fascinated by how bad he was, but I think he had an all right season in the G League.
Good, yeah. There's the hope. There's the backup center. I'll insert him in. But yeah, that's good stuff. Second, we could say on cons. You want to go to pros? What are we thinking? We haven't really lined it out.
You came up with the con to start with. I think the pro is continuity. I mean, it's a buzzword right now, and I don't think it's the smartest thing in the world to be like, well, they did it 2 years ago, so it'll work this season, because Mike Conley wasn't, applying for nursing homes, and Gobert wasn't like another 2 years older and clearly worse. So I don't think you can equate them fully, but continuity in the NBA in general is usually a beneficial thing for a team, especially a team that made a big trade last season, finished the season really well. It was obvious that Randall was better in the back half of last season and in the playoffs when things kind of felt more like synergistic for the whole team. So if you are team running it back, I think that's the first thing you point to, is that this team now has continuity. They have star players who have played 60, 70 games together. That's 60 or 70 games with Gobert as well, which feels like everyone needs a full season to figure out what Rudy's doing. So yeah, I think you can't. I can't say that it's just going to be like it was 2 seasons ago when they ran it back, but you also can't just wave it away and say continuity means nothing.
Yes, I agree. And on the point of Gobert and Conley, getting worse, so it's hard to kind of project continuity. The other side of that coin is that Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, the young guys, you could fit Rob and the others in there, but just like those core three who are in the same kind of timeline, if you will, those three are getting better every year, and it maybe can just make up for the Rudy and Conley regression, make up for some of that, and just I don't know if it'll make them better. Maybe they just stay exactly even. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously Julius is the one that just hasn't really been mentioned yet. He is super, super interesting to me in this continuity because he came back from that injury, right, and was just outstanding. The stats were pretty much the same, but they won every single game they played with him. I think it was 17-4, whereas 32-29 before the injury. So interested to see if that continuity carries over to the next season. Like, I don't expect them to be a 66 win team. That's what the pace of the 17-4 would be, but like somewhere in the middle of 32-29 of 17-4 with the Julius Randle continuity, because he's an interesting fit. And you're sending Naz Reid back to the bench permanently. He will continue to get better, I hope, just as a player, but it's going to be, yeah, I mean, just on the continuity side, Naz, at least continuity. He's familiar with the bench. Keep getting better with there, and interested to see how Julius progresses as well.
Yeah, and I think now that like I did have issues or worries that Nas didn't want to be a bench player anymore. I thought he got much worse last season. I thought when he went back to the bench, you could tell that it felt like a demotion to him. Whereas in previous seasons, it just kind of felt like Nas was going back into his role. Whereas I think this season it did feel like a demotion. At least it looked like it felt like that to him. And that was a worry of mine. But obviously, I mean, there's no way he didn't know that they were at least trying to sign Randall. So I think you get a bit more comfortability there with Nas in terms of his role in the pecking order. You get a bit more comfortability there with Randall in terms of long-term security. Ant knows who he's playing with. Ant has time to either work out with some of these guys in the off season, or at least, go to work in the film room to figure out how he can get better playing alongside Randall and playing alongside Jaden and Rudy. So that's definitely a positive. I had another worry that maybe I thought Randall was maybe one of those guys that seems to get worse after they get paid. And maybe that was just because he's that kind of aloof type of player at times. But I mean, he's been really good after he has got paid. He signed with the Pelicans after he left LA. First season there, easily a career year. He averaged 21, 8, and 3. Before that, he'd never averaged over 16 points in a game in a season. So that's a great sign. Then 2 years later, he signs an extension with New York, averages 24, 10, 6, 8th in MVP voting, 1 most improved player, All-Star, NBA, All-NBA second team. So the history suggests that Julius Randle has his career best seasons straight after he signs a big deal. So we're not going to get the career best, but I don't think, from going on that history that we're going to get a Andrew Wiggins type of player who gets worse every time they sign a contract. So that's encouraging. That's a tick in the box for continuity. And I just think that it is, and I mean, I'm a critic of Chris Finch, but I think it would be nice for Chris Finch to come into a season not having to figure out what a major player on his team actually does, because it's felt like that. It's felt like he has just been thrown Rudy Gobert, and then he got thrown Julius Randle, and he was just told figure this out. So I think the coaching might come into the continuity a little bit there as well, which is an underrated part of continuity. And maybe we just see them feel like they gel right out of the gate. And maybe, like you said, they're not going to win 66 games, but if they're 20-10 instead of whatever they were this season, 11-11 or something, like that would be huge for this team.
Yeah, and there's no bigger believer in Julius Randle than Chris Finch, so that's a good point.
Exactly.
He was probably all in on the extend Julie. He was probably listening to our podcast and just yelling at the TV the whole time. So I'm glad he'll certainly agree with it. And yeah, I mean, the fit will forever just be super weird to me with Julius Randle and Naz Reid. I just thought it would be Naz Reid slides in, figure out point guard. But hey, maybe at
Mhm.
the deadline or the season after, this could just, continuity might only be for the first half of this season because we
Yeah.
really have no idea. But I guess moving on to maybe another con, then I'll just keep doing the cons. I'll keep being negative here.
I
I
don't know
think
how I've shafted you with this, but I think to do it.
it's all good. I wrote down the young trio of Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr., and then Jalen Clark. They looked really good last year in their limited minutes. Of course, Rob the most limited, I think. But I guess I am wondering now that they're going to be shoved into the rotation of a team that has finals hopes, based off the last two seasons. Can they be legitimate pieces for 82 games as the league kind of adjusts to them? We're going to talk about them much more in the second episode, like I mentioned, but just overall, I mean, again, we're throwing Rob into going from 11 minutes a game to minimum, like bare minimum, 20, right? Same thing with a guy like Terrence Shannon Jr. played 11. Bare minimum should be like around 20. Same with Jalen Clark. So, especially, now that Nickeil Alexander Walker's gone. So, very interested if these three guys over 82 can maintain what we saw. And especially with Jalen Clark, he's a very interesting player to me. He shot, it was a 43% from three on
Mhm.
1.8 attempts per game last season. In college, he never did that. He shot like 33%. Obviously, very different player just since then. He missed a whole year with injury. But if he can fire the three ball at even like a 38% clip and play the defense he plays, he'll be very effective. But if not, I think he'll very quickly almost be played off the floor if he can't shoot the three well. So
Mhm.
interested to see those three over an 82 game sample. So yeah, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, I think this pro and con can kind of be wrapped together, where
Sure.
it's an unknown, and that's a con. Like it's we say run it back, but this team, you lose Nickeil Alexander Walker, you lose 10% of Conley, you lose maybe 10% of Rudy, or you just whatever the case may be. They are going to play these young players. They need to. I think some of this offseason was Tim Conley just being like, hey, I'm going to make you play these young guys because I keep drafting them and you keep not playing them. Again, another weird basketball reference deep dive tangent that I'm going to go on is I think that Terrence Shannon Jr. was the only player aged 22 or older when they were drafted. So he was 24, so he's super old rookie, to be drafted in the first round and then play less than, I think it was like less than 400 minutes since I think maybe 2016, which was like Bryce, someone who was drafted super early in the first round and like didn't play a single minute for his whole career. So um, it's weird. It's weird to draft older guys and then not play them in the first season. Even good teams, like some of the names that were on this deep dive, I can't even remember them. I can't even remember them playing a single minute, and they were playing 700 minutes in a season for a good team. So it is weird. I think that Conley was like, "Look, you're going to play these guys because I'm going to make you play them. When we don't have money to sign Nickeil, I'm not going to go and sign another point guard. We do need, the league needs wing players like Shannon and Jalen Clark feel modern day NBA. They feel Indiana Pacers. They feel Oklahoma City Thunder. Like they feel Boston Celtics kind of players. So that is a negative because I agree. It's a question mark. You don't know what you're going to get from these guys. It was wild to me when I was doing my Terrence Jr. video recently how few teams he played. Like he played OKC like 4 times. He played the Lakers like 3 times. I think he played like the Bucks and the Bulls, and that was kind of all of his like games that he played actual minutes in. So he doesn't know the league. The league doesn't know him, but they are going to guys get scouted quickly. If Terrence Shannon Jr. averages 14 points a game for the first 2 weeks, teams are going to scout the life out of him.
Yeah.
Like,
How do they adjust
uh,
back? Can they
yeah,
adjust back? Are they good enough?
yeah. Jalen Clark, like the way he sneaks up and steals the ball, and flies around offensively and defensively, like that will get scouted if it starts becoming a really positive part of Minnesota's game. Rob, he's going to get scouted to death because he's going to be a point guard playing a lot of minutes. He's going to be small. He's going to be at the top of the scouting report. Target this guy on defense, hunt him 94 feet if he's turnover prone, force him to shoot the three if he's not hitting the three. So that's it is. I mean, I love watching the young guys. I've been a proponent of playing the young guys on this team all season, especially Rob, because I think this is the problem they were always going to have. I knew Rob would be bad last season. The reason I thought he needed to play is that now we have to watch his rookie season for the second time. And we have to watch him make all these rookie mistakes for the second time when they need him even more. There's not any leash there for him because they need a backup point guard. They need a starting point guard. So that is a con. But then the pro, I guess if I lose
Pro
my
is that
pro,
it might be fucking fun.
exactly. And the pro is that they all do things that this team doesn't have anymore. I think
Yeah.
Clark maybe was the most, similar to Natil last season. He can hit threes. He's obviously not as good as Natil. Doesn't handle the ball
But you can see
nearly
the
as well.
progression being very, very, very
And
similar.
and it's you're hoping that the 3-point shot holds, and he's a 3-and-D guy. And in Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a 3-and-D guy who can handle a little bit, but in a perfect world, Nickeil just shoots threes and defends, and that's it. But this team doesn't have a Terrence Shannon Jr. They don't have guys who can push pace, who can get to the rim in the half court, who can capitalize on Ant's gravity the way that TJ Shannon can. So, and they don't have a Rob Dillingham, a fast point guard who can get into the paint, who can beat guys off the dribble, who can, he was an insane shooter in college. So I get why they need to rework his shot a little bit, but I don't think this is a guy who's a non-shooter or a guy who can't shoot. Like, he shot 45% on insane volume and crazy shots for the whole college season. So he can shoot. And they don't have those guys. So in a perfect world, and I agree, I don't think this perfect world is very likely, you get all the good bits of these rookies and it adds to the team and it actually gives them different, dynamics they can go to with their offense and their defense. So yeah, it's a risky kind of thing. I don't think, let me ask you this. Do you think the Wolves are championship contenders next season?
No. I mean,
yeah.
I'd put them 4th in the West, maybe 6th overall, though. Is that championship contender? That's get in and you have a home playoff series and see what happens. Do I think they beat the Thunder next year? No.
It's more of a, if everything broke right, they could do it.
Yeah.
They're fringe contenders, which
I think yes, but I think the odds of that are just astronomically low, whereas everything breaking right for the Thunder or the Rockets or the Nuggets is much, much, much more likely because, again, the Wolves are relying on point guards that have been around since the dinosaurs and one that was born yesterday. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I agree. So in my mind, I'm coming into this season with my expectations lower than I was coming into last season. But I don't mean that in like a pessimistic kind of way. I mean, I think their best chance to win a championship was the first year in the Western Conference Finals, the year with Cat. I think everything did break right for them in that season, and they got beaten by a team that was frankly worse than them over the course of the regular season. Like, they, on paper, and the game's not played on paper, but they should have beat them out. Like, that was their chance to get into the finals. Maybe they wouldn't have beat Boston, but like, that was everything breaking right. You win a game 7 that you were down 20 points. You play a team that you were ranked way higher than in the seedings in the Western Conference Finals while you're playing really well. And, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work out. And that's just the game sometimes. So
yeah.
So now I'm like, if you win 49 games like they did this season, or if you're the 4th seed or the 5th seed and you lose in the first or second round, that would be seen as a disappointment for a team who's just come off back-to-back Western Conference Finals. But if Rob turns out to be a really nice piece in that first round exit, or Terrence Shannon Jr. is definitely a rotation guy, like, to me, yes, that is still a good season because you're setting up the next timeline while still remaining competitive and while still winning games and potentially winning one playoff series. Or maybe you get back to the Western Conference Finals and get whacked again by OKC. Like, I don't think they can win the championship, but I don't think that has to be like the worst thing in the world.
Yes, I agree. It's almost unfortunately they've made it to the Western Conference. Not unfortunately, but you know what I mean. Like, for their own expectations, and heck, maybe they don't beat the Warriors if Steph is fully healthy. I think they do in 7, but who knows? Just really quick, do you think Tim Connolly and Chris Finch, in their heart of hearts, think the Wolves can win a championship this year?
Probably not. I think they would have. I think that's why they tried to get KD. I think they thought if we are one piece away, if they thought that KD was going to help them win the championship, and after that decided to get nobody, in my mind, I think they are much smarter than us. They must know that Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. getting more minutes does not equate to Kevin Durant getting 35 minutes a game.
Well, I could have
So
told you that too.
yeah, yeah. So I think that they do think we need everything to break right for us, and maybe we're a chance. And I think that's where they were at last season too. And things did break right for them to get to the Western Conference Finals. Like they're the only team that's ever got to play the Golden State Warriors without Steph Curry in a series. Steph's never missed that many games in the playoffs. So things did break right. They faced a great team. They were never going to beat the Thunder. And that doesn't have to be like a doomer take to be like,
yeah.
They got beaten by a better team. That's how sports work. I think they got probably worse this season in the aggregate just because, like you said, the rookies you can't trust the rookie right now. Maybe we look at this in 2 months and Rob Dillingham's averaging 18 and 7. And we say, wow, like this team is definitely better than they were last season. But I think we have to assume that the rookies are going to be inconsistent, and they should be allowed to be inconsistent, which makes them a worse team, I think. So
Jake keeps saying rookies, but he does mean second year players.
I am. I think in my head they're just rookies because they didn't play enough. Right. Like they're like Jalen Clark rookies from last season, where they just, to me, we didn't get to see what they could do enough for me to be like, these guys have got a full second year. They haven't played. If you play 1,500 minutes in a season, the second year you are experienced in the NBA. So. I shouldn't say rookies. You're right.
I just, in case.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, but
I get what you're saying for sure. Rob,
they've got first year player experience. I mean, they've got another off season, and they're going to get stronger. And
they've been around the guys, which I think is valuable.
Yeah,
so
it is valuable. So I shouldn't write that off either. But yeah, I just think that maybe, if you go into this season, my expectations for the season as it stands is that they're a good, not great team. And they're going to start building the next era of this Timberwolves basketball, and that would be very acceptable to me. I didn't think they should have run it back, but if they're going to, I think that playing the young guys is the way that you make it the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. Let's play a little game here of sorts. I've got the Timberwolves roster. Well, I've got 10 guys. I'm sorry, I didn't write Ingles or Jesse Edwards, or I put 11 on here. I meant to put 10, so I'm actually going to fix that. Okay, no, I'm not. It's not working. Okay, we got.
So I don't see any Rocco. I don't see any Joe Ingles. This feels like you're disrespecting the World Wide Wolves code.
Yes, I am. And so what we've got here is the minutes that they played last year. And it all adds up to 247. We got to cut it down to a rotation of 240 minutes. And we can kind of go through this quickly just to see what we might think it looks like.
If you're listening on the podcast, and I should have said this at the start, it is up. We are up on Spotify now. Apple Podcasts, I got beef with Apple, but I'm going to sort that out as well. Probably by the time anyone would be listening to this, I will sort this out, or I'll be close to. So we'll try and explain this as well, because it obviously is a visual thing. But we've got all the players here. We've got their minutes next to them. It's pretty simple. You need 240 minutes in a game, in a roster, for a full game between every player. We're currently at, 247. So we need to trim some minutes. We need to maybe redistribute some minutes here. Should we go? We'll start at Rob. We'll start with Rob because he's the one that's weird to me.
Yes.
We know Anthony Edwards is going to play 36 minutes a game. We know, I think you can put McDaniels and Randall and Gobert. Oh, maybe not Gobert, but you can put McDaniels and Randall in Penn for 32 or around that mark.
Naz Reid, yeah, pretty much.
Naz Reid's going to play 25 to 30 every game. DiVincenzo, I think the rest of them we could have a conversation about for sure. So tell me what you think about Rob Dillingham, the starter or the minutes guy.
Yeah, so I did put him as the starter here. Chris Finch is the coach. He did not get fired, so we don't know what's actually going to happen with Rob
He's
and
not going to
Conley.
start. He won't start.
You don't think really?
I think there's no chance. I think there is zero chance that Rob Dillingham starts. I
Well, I'm
just think
not
that
changing this.
I think it. I think yeah. No, you don't have to change that. I think it. It could be. It could be DiVincenzo, and I think it will
Okay,
be Conley.
true. Okay, dang. I guess then we got to consider DiVincenzo, but
That's
man,
okay. We can keep it. It still makes sense to do it like this.
are we like going? Sorry, are we going too hard on Mike Conley? We've really gone
There is
in
a
on him.
chance. There is a chance. I think the problem with Conley and the way we speak about him is he's gotten really bad at the things that this team needs. But that so in our minds, I think that makes him a really bad player, which is not true. Like he is
Yeah.
still very good at, he doesn't turn the ball over. He gets the offense going. He's still a great 3-point shooter. Especially off the catch. What he doesn't do is provide anything off the dribble. No rim pressure, no inside the arc dribbling. He can't get past his man in a pick and roll. He can't run pick and roll with Gobert anymore because teams don't guard Mike. As soon as he gets inside the 3-point line, they let him shoot as many floaters as they want, and his man sags back onto Gobert to double him on the roll. So the Gobert Conley pick and roll's gone, and it won't come back, in my opinion, unless he starts making, like, he needs to make 2-point shots for like 3 months of the season before teams start to really, start to commit to him again. So you are right, and it's a very good point that we're talking like Mike Conley's the worst player in the league. And that feels harsh for a player who's been very good for a very long time. But he doesn't. This team needs people who can get to the rim. They need people who can play next to Anthony Edwards and like force teams to stop doubling him, or at least to think about taking 2 steps away from the double and making it gap help instead. So that is why I think Rob fits better on this team. But that's Rob being like the ideal version. There's going to be, if they started Rob on night 1, he'd have 4 turnovers in the first half and we'd all be pulling our hair out.
Yes. So to answer the question you asked about 8 minutes ago, where do I think Rob will be sliding in with minutes? I said we should run through this quickly.
Yes.
And
Sorry, I ramble.
Happen. No, we both do. It's great. But Rob, I think, is 25 too many?
I think so. What are we doing? What we want or what we think they will do?
You know what? Let's do what we want today.
Okay, I think 25 for Rob is what I would like to see. That's not too many. It's not giving him Anthony Edwards minutes, but it's giving him lots of room. It's giving him
last year's Conley minutes is what it's doing.
Yeah, it's giving him lots of room to make mistakes. I want to see that because he needs to make them and then fix them.
Yes. Okay. So we got Rob, what we want, at 25 minutes. Are we good with Anthony Edwards at 36 minutes, the same mark as last year?
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be between 35 and 40 every night.
Yes. Jaden McDaniels at 32?
I'd like to see more, but he probably fouls enough to like keep him at 32 over the course of a season,
True. Okay. Randall, 32.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. What do you think? Maybe you can split them closer with Nas, but I mean, he's going to play. It feels like that is normal.
Yeah, I mean, he's 1 year older, but he's 31. It's not like he's always 31. I mean,
yeah,
we need to cut off 21 minutes in this somehow.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what we do, and Conley's coming up, so maybe we cut a few there. But hey, I mean, maybe we just can't even do it, and we go, okay, got to figure that out later on. But right now, I think you keep.
Maybe we cut like 2 from Randall.
Okay, I like that.
We just we need to start trimming the fat here somewhere.
All right, Rudy at 33.
I'm interested what you think here. Like, is this the year that you say, hey, Rudy, you're going to play 28 minutes a game? Because you look unhealthy in the playoffs. Like, you look old. And I know some of that is just because Rudy is a weird player in the playoffs to fit into your team. But he looked super healthy when he came back from injury after he had, 2-3 weeks off. And he looked slow. He looked old in the playoffs. He couldn't jump rebounds. He, not only just turning the ball over, which is just a Rudy thing when he has the ball. I thought he looked slow and old. So maybe it's like, we're going to give you 28 a game this season. I don't think this is a great idea, but we trust that Randall and Naz Reid can play minutes together. They played them last season. They played them pretty well stats wise.
Yeah, and I mean, plus there were a couple playoff series where Rudy Gobert truly could not be on the court. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
okay in the regular season to test that out a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
for when that certainly will happen again. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think cutting him down to at least 28 is it's got to be the move here for Rudy.
Yeah. And there's going to be
33,
night.
28. Yep.
Yeah. And there's nights where the thing about that front court is there's nights where Randall's going to play 22. There's nights where
Yeah.
Gobert's going to play 37. And, this it's so fluid because they are such three different players.
Yes. And now we move on to the sixth man, Naz Reid.
Hmm.
Sat at 28 minutes last season. Do you think that stays stagnant or do you think it goes up to around 30?
Yeah, I would like to put it up to 30, but then I'm looking at these minutes that we have, and I'm like, I don't think we can be adding any minutes here. We're at 254 minutes total.
Here's what we need to do. We need to go to Mike Conley right now because he's a for sure we're going to take some minutes away.
And I think that maybe we might need to just go a 9-man rotation. Would that fix the problem?
Yeah, but who the hell are we taking out of the rotation?
Yeah, I don't know. It'd probably be Jalen Clark, but that feels wrong.
Yeah, it does.
All right, so let's put in my mind, I'm playing Mike just the backup minutes to Rob, which would be 13.
Okay, 13, easy.
I think that's when Mike makes sense, is if he is like a backup point guard, like every old point guard is, like Kyle Lowry. Like these guys are still valuable players. Chris Paul didn't even start last season. Oh, maybe he did, but no, he didn't because he wants to be a starter still.
Right.
Or I don't. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like these are guys that it's just fine for Mike Conley to be a threat.
Yeah, I think I don't know, he doesn't seem like he's going to be pissed off about this. He probably understands.
Hmm.
And
then it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like if Rob is terrible, he plays 14 minutes, and you give Conley some more minutes, and you give DiVincenzo some more minutes. So, but I think in the aggregate, in a perfect world, we want Rob to play 25 minutes. So I think you just put Conley at 13.
Agreed. And then from there,
that doesn't make sense. I've got my maths wrong. There's another 23 minutes that need to be filled, but that would be DiVincenzo, I think, probably be because you're not getting DiVincenzo 26 minutes.
Well, yeah,
and
it's not
Jalen
just
Clark,
yeah.
And Jalen Clark 13 and Terrence Shannon Jr. 11 if Dante's not playing the point guard. At some point,
Yeah, this is we're in a tough spot here.
I think you can probably I would take a couple off DiVincenzo and I'd take a couple off Clark and I'd give them all to Shannon.
Okay,
I think Terrence
we'll
Shannon Jr. I think he should be playing more than Clark. So what's that? 15 minutes a game feels. Oh yeah, 13 to make it at 240. Yeah, like that feels. So let me go through this for anyone listening. Rob is starting playing 25 minutes. Edwards 36, McDaniels 32, Randall 30, Gobert 28.
That's my dog.
Nas 28, DiVincenzo 24. Depending on where you fell on the DiVincenzo playoffs scale, there might be people who say that's way too many minutes for him or not enough. Conley 13 off the bench, Clark 11 off the bench, Terrence Shannon Jr. 13 off the bench. How do you feel about that?
I feel like this is going to turn into a 9-man rotation, and every night it could be either TJ, Clark, or Conley that get DNP coach decision, basically like that. Any of the bottom 3 guys. If they keep doing it to Rob, then why the heck did you pick him at 9? I don't think they will.
I think there's a chance that like DiVincenzo and Conley play point guard minutes, and like they're going to give Rob a chance at the start of the season, I think. But I would not be surprised if Rob has 2 bad weeks and all of his minutes go to Terrence Shannon Jr. And they just, you know what I mean? Like, and they play Mike and Dante at the 1. Like that, all of them go to Jalen Clark. Jalen Clark is definitely the most Finch player of the young guys.
Man, if that's even a possibility, that's like I guess it is, but you should just trade him then. Like,
yeah. and I'm making up scenarios in my head. So maybe there's no chance. Like maybe Tim Connolly and Chris Finch have sat down and said, "You're going to play Rob. Like you're going to play him through the ups and the downs because we have legitimate assets invested in him."
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a fun exercise. It was hard to cut it down. I actually didn't notice I
Yeah,
just went there. So
that made me feel bad. I feel like I feel like there was no right answer.
yes, we could just remove someone, but I don't want to. But anyways, that's gonna probably wrap up this first episode of the week. Yeah, I mean, YouTube stuff, hit the subscribe button, the like button, comment. We're gonna eventually get to reading comments on here more. So I think we're just,
Mhm.
getting established more guests and so on and so forth in coming weeks, perhaps. I don't know. We haven't really talked about it. I'm just throwing it out there. But anyways, this was fun. I liked all of this today. Never know how long it's gonna go. We always shoot for 30 and go way over. So Jake, it was a
Yeah.
great time. Do you think we
Yes.
got
Thank
everything solved today?
No.
But we tried.
We tried, and it's the friends we made along the way.
Yes. Oh man, good stuff. All right. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.